Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. BC music festivals facing growing financial pressure.
We're not going to bounce back in 1 year.
What it means for future events. Plus, as the cost of flying soars, the growing calls for Ottawa to help bring prices down. And it's back.
It's excellent. It's a Canadian store, and I hope people will love it.
I'll definitely check it out.
And BC will be home to 4 Zellers locations. We'll tell you where.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Anita Bathe. Well, more BC music festivals are speaking up about the troubles they're facing to stay afloat. This comes after the Vancouver Folk Music Festival revealed this summer's event has been cancelled and its future also hangs in the balance. As Zara Premji explains, I'm just hearing that we're actually having a technical issue, and so we are going to go now to a different story, and it's about bartenders and brewers locally here who say that British Columbians are, with the changing drinking habits that they're seeing. We told you yesterday about the new federal health guidelines suggesting bottles should come with warning labels and that no amount of alcohol is safe to drink. As John Hernandez explains, the recommendations coincide with a growing thirst for non-alcoholic alternatives.
Lifelong bartender Nick Devine has noticed a trend over the years.
Statistics are showing, the younger generations that are coming through are opting out of alcohol.
A movement that's encouraged him to get out of the craft beer industry and launch his own brand of mocktails.
Kind of becoming cool not to drink now, and I think certainly with my generations and older generations, I think we're starting to pay attention to cutting down,
The growing popularity of these drinks and many others like them have coincided with recent waves in alcohol research that highlight the dangers of drinking. On Tuesday, new federal consumption guidelines were released, suggesting no amount of alcohol is safe to drink without risk.
So at 2 drinks a week, the label that was used by the committee was low risk, and at 6 drinks a week is moderate risk and increasing risk thereafter.
Those risks include cancers and heart disease and have led to some experts calling for warning labels on bottles.
Consumers have a right to know facts about potential risks from a product they use all the time.
A prospect that's drawn mixed reactions from consumers.
I think it's a good idea. I mean, they've done it with cigarettes, and there's a definite risk that's been associated with alcohol consumption.
It's irrelevant for me. It's like I have a label or not. It's don't change nothing if the people continues to use it.
BC's Alliance of Beverage Licensees, which represents private liquor stores, has spoken out against labels, instead pointing to the burgeoning alcohol-free market as proof that times are changing.
And even large alcohol companies are investing in non-alcoholic options for their consumers, right? We didn't need warning labels to do that. We needed a bit of education, and that's why consumers shifted their habits.
Still, it may be enough to inspire a sober second thought. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
The former principal of an elementary school here in Vancouver has been accused of stealing donations. She faces allegations of misappropriating about $170,000 in school funds, including gift cards intended for families in need. Bethany Lindsay is here now. Bethany, what more have you learned?
Yeah, so this all comes from a civil claim that was filed in BC Supreme Court. It concerns Tricia Rooney, who's also known as Tricia Lowe. Now, she was a principal at Britannia Elementary School from 2017 to 2020. This is a school with just 200 students, many from low-income families. The Vancouver School Board is alleging that Rooney committed fraud and theft of school funds. That includes more than $13,000 in gift cards that were donated for struggling families. Rooney is also accused of keeping proceeds from school fundraisers and of booking and then canceling school events so she could funnel the refunds for her personal use. I should point out that these are all allegations right now. They haven't been tested in court, and Rooney hasn't filed a response to the claim. When I called her yesterday to ask for comment, she hung up the phone.
So what has the reaction been like from the school community hearing all of this?
Yeah, the Britannia Elementary Parent Advisory Council has issued a written statement. It says many in our student body rely on the school for support, which makes these allegations all the more troubling. Our school staff work hard to enrich our students' school experience, and we are happy to support that. Now, of course, many of these allegations appear to be criminal in nature. The school board did not answer my questions about whether this was reported to police. And a Vancouver police spokesperson said he wasn't aware of an active investigation.
Bethany Lindsay reporting tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
A man was shot in Vancouver's Granville Entertainment District last night. Police say the victim was standing on Granville Street near Nelson Street at about 10 p.m. when he was shot. He was rushed to hospital with life-threatening injuries. There have been no arrests, and police say an investigation is underway. Well, it's been 2 years since the disappearance of a Port Moody woman, and now her family is renewing calls to help catch her killer. Trina Hunt's family will continue to offer a $50,000 reward for new information leading to criminal charges against her killer. Hunt was first reported missing on January 18th, 2021 by her husband. 2 months later, her body was found near Hope. Investigators are asking anyone with information to please reach out to police. Well, BC billionaire Frank Giustra has settled a years-long defamation lawsuit with Twitter. It centered around tweets that linked him to conspiracy theories involving Hillary Clinton. Giustra wanted Twitter to remove those tweets and claimed the company failed to do so. Twitter tried to have the lawsuit thrown out over jurisdiction, arguing that Giustra filed the case in Canada because the First Amendment protects free speech in the U.S. But in BC, in the Supreme Court and the BC Court of Appeal, they agreed to hear Giustra's claim. The terms of the settlement have not been made public. More BC music festivals are speaking up about the troubles they're facing to stay afloat. This comes after the Vancouver Folk Music Festival revealed this summer's event had been cancelled, and its future also hangs in the balance. As our Premji explains, festival organizers across the province say inflation has gripped the creative industry.
Whether it's the Jazz Fest, the Constellation Festival, Bard on the Beach, BC has always been a creative hub. That creativity has proudly been on display at different festivals for decades. But with COVID still rampant and many festivals facing the grip of inflation, the future is uncertain.
We are definitely struggling. We've given ourselves until the end of January to decide if we're going to be able to have an event this summer.
We definitely are dealing with the same concerns that Folk Fest listed in their announcement as well,
leaving many worried.
When we lose, whether it be an iconic stage or festival like the Vancouver Folk Music Festival or small live music venues, what I say is we're losing pieces of our cultural infrastructure.
On Tuesday, the Vancouver Folk Music Festival announced its cancellation of its 2023 summer event. And there's an upcoming vote on whether to dissolve the society and the 45-year festival as a whole.
If artists don't have places to play, they might not play. And if an artist doesn't play, they don't go on to write that amazing song that your kids dance to at their wedding.
But the burden of costly price tags weighs heavy for the Vancouver International Jazz Festival. It says it will go on this year.
We will be reducing some other areas of the festival in order to provide some stability for us.
Both festivals calling on their municipalities to step in. The City of Vancouver says it will provide support where it can, while the province adds that it has given a lot during COVID, but we'll see what else it can do.
We had a lot of help from provincial and federal government post-COVID for the first year, and we're immensely grateful for that. We're not going to bounce back in 1 year.
But in the end, if you want to see live music, festivals, and creativity in your community, a plea from organizers.
There's a lot of money in this province. Step up and become greater patrons to the arts.
Zara Premji, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, Vancouver City Council has denied a cultural grant to the Vancouver area network of drug users. It was for $7,500, and Vandu was the only organization to have a grant denied last night. For more on this, I'm joined live by Justin McElroy. Justin, why is $7,500 stirring up so much discussion?
Well, like you said, Anita, it was the only grant that was not approved by council last night. It came as part of a document that's pretty standard when it comes to council, a list of groups that have put forward applications. They've been approved in theory by staff, and all of them, except you see that one for an art table for $7,500 was approved. An amendment was put in to remove that, to have that money instead go to the future towards some sort of Indigenous-led organization that would provide equivalent art. You can see a photo of a thing that the Vandu does with art tables here, allowing members of the community to do things like that. Of course, the backstory for this was last year, Vandu was given a $320,000 contract by the city of Vancouver for neighborhood stewardship, street cleaning. The city ended up canceling that contract halfway through because they felt that Vandu wasn't doing enough focus on street cleaning, that the city wasn't getting its money's worth. Other councillors argued that $7,500 for something that had nothing to do with street cleaning was fair to get approved. Here's a little bit of that debate last night.
And I think that there's an opportunity to recognize that where they may not have done a great job on the street cleaning contract, where they may miss the beat on a few things that don't align with existing city policies, this is about art. This is about expression. This is about a vulnerable population expressing themselves that are in the middle of a crisis. And I think this is, unfortunately, a big political mistake to make.
Vandu, unfortunately, did not live up to the terms of the agreement of the $320,000 that was advanced to them for street cleaning, publicly admitting that in multiple media reports. And I know this is only $7,500 we're talking about, and I am a big supporter of the arts and culture sector, but we have to draw the line somewhere. And I believe as a council, we need to send a message.
And send a message they did. It passed along party lines. Mayor Ken Sim and the ABC councillors voting in favor of the amendment, the 3 opposition councillors voting against.
So, Justin, in your opinion, is this political retribution or sound fiscal management?
I mean, it can be a little bit of both. Certainly, sometimes you want to give messages to organizations that unless they tighten their ship, they're not going to get large grants in the future. That being said, over the course of the campaign, there was no love lost between ABC supporters and Vandu supporters on any number of situations. And this happens whenever you have a change in government. You have organizations that used to be in the ins with City Hall or the provincial governments, now on the outs, some on the outs, now in the ins. This is just another example of ways that things are changing at City Hall and where the priorities are.
Justin McElroy, thank you. A humpback whale trapped in hundreds of feet of rope has been freed. On Monday, a Fisheries and Oceans Canada crew found the whale near Port Hardy. The DFO says it was trapped in what appeared to be recreational prawn fishing gear. Responders were able to approach the whale and cut through the rope. The freed whale was able to swim away and is expected to make a full recovery. Well, a Victoria-based wildlife volunteer group recently captured a rare sight on film, the birth of a northern elephant seal. Take a look. These are the first few seconds of the baby seal's new life, with the mom on the left inspecting her newborn. The video was on Great Race Rock Island off the coast of Metchosin on Vancouver Island.
I was monitoring this female for a while and started to notice one evening that she was moving differently and lots of little funny contortions. So I got up a little early the next morning, watched and noticed she was still doing that. And then I opened the window because for such big animals, they're rather chatty. And soon as I heard the tone of the chats changing, that's when I was prepared to get the camera ready and film this.
Researchers say the Race Rock are a group of small islands, sometimes called the Galapagos of the North, thanks to its unique high tides and its abundance of marine life. Access to the islands are restricted, but if you want to see the animals, there are live feeds on the Pearson College UWC website. Now, we did, as you see, spare viewers, watch of the entire video, Johanna, but the miracle of birth really is a beautiful thing, isn't it?
I was going to say that was such a special moment to see the seal caught in the first few minutes. I feel like some of those seal noises I can kind of relate to in the throes
No
of the
comment.
moment. Right? Yeah, very cool. I'm going to check out the live cam. I'm going to show you a different live cam, though, from this morning, looking out at our weather, which was, if I counted correctly, the third morning we woke up to relentless driving rain across Metro Vancouver. That was the cold front. We saw some gusty winds taking it through to the mid-morning. It did ease. We actually got behind that cold front sort of around 10 a.m., I'd say, is when that cold front really passed through, and you can almost see the winds. There we go, switching as that front rolled through. So that cold front has passed through. You probably noticed the beautiful blue skies this afternoon and that bubbling cumulus just a few moments ago. Actually, let's see if I can take you back to the radar. I did catch a lightning strike. There it is, an anomalously large lightning strike. I shouldn't have made it that big, but just southwest of Surrey. That has just happened in the past hour. So seen some convection out there, and we'll keep the risk for lightning strikes, especially as this line tracks eastward in the forecast for the next couple of hours. But this is the kind of setup we can get behind a cold front. There it is, moving across the interior, bringing some wet weather, including some much needed snow. Not a lot, but getting some snow through the southern interior tonight. Okay, high pressure is our story for the next couple of days. It's not totally going to clear us out. I think we've still got a risk of a stray shower tomorrow afternoon, but it'll be nice to see the sunshine, even if it comes with crisp temperatures. And look at these temperatures right now, a 5 at YVR, 7s out towards Pitt Meadows and White Rock. But tonight, Anita, temperatures getting down to the freezing mark. And that's our story for the next couple of days. I'll be back in a bit with the chilly but sun-filled forecast.
All right. Thanks, Jo.
You're welcome.
A celebration of life was held today for the man killed by an avalanche last week outside of Nelson.
I'm certain every person in this room has been touched in some way by Wade's amazing spirit. And we're so grateful that we can come together to pay our collective respects to this wonderful man.
Constable Wade Titmore was off duty when he was buried by an avalanche while skiing in Caslow. It's about an hour outside of Nelson. He was 43 years old and leaves behind a wife and 2 young sons. He has been posthumously promoted to detective for his dedication as an officer and commitment to improvement. Today's funeral was for invited guests only, but was streamed online with the family's permission. His colleague, Constable Matthew Nolette, was also injured that day and is still recovering in the ICU. It was a household Canadian brand, but largely vanished from the retail landscape more than a decade ago. Now, Zellers is returning to 25 locations across Canada. Here's Anis Haydari on how the Hudson's Bay Company is trying to revive the discount retailer.
This mall doesn't have a Zellers sign, but shoppers remember it with mixed opinions.
It's not like I'm chomping at the bit to revisit Zellers again.
When I was younger, there were a lot of different places like that. You could get a bunch of essentials, but now it's few and far between.
It was always cheaper than your other clothing stores and whatever. So, yeah, we have memories.
After opening up one new Zellers section inside this Burlington, Ontario store, Hudson's Bay has announced it's opening 24 more, 25 Zellers locations across 7 provinces. They're promising to focus on design, but details are scarce. And retail experts say that's not what will matter.
The question is, what are the prices going to be like? I don't think we're going to see the lowest price is the law, as was the slogan of the former Zellers.
Hey, Canada, your housewares are here.
For decades, Zellers promised low prices in hundreds of stores.
'Cause the lowest price is the law.
But after Hudson's Bay sold most of them to Target in 2011, it basically ignored the brand. That's changing. It's now pushing it on some social media accounts. But with empty accounts on younger platforms like TikTok, while marketing on LinkedIn, marketers say the target isn't clear.
You got them on Facebook as well, which again is typically an older demographic. So I think they don't totally know who they are or what they're going after.
This Zellers really has, it's bright and it's kitschy and it's fun and it looks like something that a young person would shop at, but that young person may not be that familiar with the Zellers of the past.
The new locations will be about 1/10 the size of the old department stores, and they'll be located inside existing, mostly older Hudson's Bay stores, which means a different experience for Zellers fans finding out if the law of low prices still applies decades later. Anis Hidari, CBC News, Calgary.
And for those of you eager to check out that comeback firsthand here in BC, the 4 Zellers locations will be in Vancouver, Kamloops, Surrey, and Abbotsford. So you have plenty to choose from to fulfill your nostalgic needs. How the overdose crisis is hitting international students in BC. After the break, we are live with one advocate who says many of them are ending up homeless on the downtown east side. Thanks for watching our commercial-free live stream tonight. 200 students at a school in St. John's got to eat some tasty tacos and learn about food security. It's all part of a new national program that introduces schools to sustainable food production.
These tacos are the best. Will always be the best no matter what. Nothing comes close to it.
Today is the Farm to Cafeteria Canada launch for Holy Heart. So we were award recipients of a $10,000 grant from Farm to Cafeteria Canada. And so they aim to get more local, fresh, healthy food into schools. We were able to buy equipment with it, so we have a salad bar en route. And then we're also planning to grow some hydroponics so that we can have our own lettuce. This is our launch day, so our very first food event where students can come and access local food in school.
We didn't have reliable cafeteria service and the food was not really high quality. So we had an idea of a launch of our own foods we could make, and Farm to Table came to life, Farm to School. So we really just got involved with that, thought about it, got fundraising at the start of the year, and just kind of launched the idea.
There's a lot of food insecurity issues within our school and within the greater community, but we see it a lot here at Holy Heart. So we wanted to make sure that we had food for students, however that looks, and the fact that we could bring in local food and healthy food was just a bonus.
What have you learned about food insecurity?
Well, that a lot of people can't get certain foods or they tend to waste it. And it's a big thing, and I'm actually really insecure about it now. I make sure my family doesn't waste foods whenever we make something at home. So.
Why do you do that?
Because some people can't get things that my family can. And I feel like it's such a big thing if someone wastes something that someone else can't get.
I'm really learning how expensive food is getting. We did a few research assignments on how food gets to us, how much is thrown away, food waste, all that kind of stuff. And it's really just opened my eyes to how really bad food waste is, and how if we're not careful of it, it can really be a bad thing for our province.
If they really do need a lunch and they come in and they get one, that may boost their day and make their academical performance very increased. So they can have a good day, good lunch, full stomach. The brain has brain food, let's say.
For future events, we will probably need a lot more food. Seems like tacos are going over really well, so we'll probably do that again. But we definitely probably need to prepare for more than 200 in the future.
Advocates in BC's Punjabi community are warning about how hard the toxic drug crisis is hitting international students from India. One Gurdwara in Surrey says it's been helping families with the deaths of 20 young people over a 2-year period. It says 16 of those deaths were overdoses of males under 30. Baljit Lally with Khalsa Aid joins me live now to look at what's happening. Baljit, I know you aren't specifically dealing with the deaths of Punjabi students, but tell me about what you are seeing in terms of drug use leading to homelessness and what's happening there.
Thanks for having me on to talk about this really important topic. Through our outreach, I would say in the downtown east side of Vancouver, we were doing outreach, for example, during the harsh extreme weather that we had last month. And as we were walking around with volunteers, we noticed there were some young Punjabi students. I could hear them talk, and I looked back and I ended up talking to 2 of them, and they happened to be international students that just unfortunately fell victim to the drug crisis, and as well as the Wally Strip in Surrey. We do a lot of outreach there as well, and we've been unfortunately seeing more and more students, young male students, falling victim to drugs.
And what happens to them, because they are here as students, if they become homeless? You were talking to me earlier about how they're becoming undocumented. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so if they're not, they're only here on their student visa for a certain period of time, and then they can apply for a work permit. And if they're not attending school, and then they're not getting their work permit, they unfortunately become undocumented, and then can get picked up by police and then CBSA, and can get detained and then unfortunately deported back. So they are falling victim to that.
It's not just international students that you're seeing in terms of the changing faces on the downtown east side. Can you tell me about who else is there?
So at the same time, we're seeing a lot of young South Asian males that are born in Canada as well, in areas that have been afflicted by drugs. We're seeing a lot of them, and whether they've been kicked out of their homes or choose to live on the street because of their addiction issues, we are seeing a lot more drug usage within our community, especially young males.
And, in the South Asian community and in so many others, stigma is still a driver in covering up the drug use. We've seen it several times, both of us, when someone young dies and their death is said to have been a heart attack or they died in their sleep, but really it was an overdose. How are people of first and second generation in the South Asian culture, but other cultures as well, changing this stigma?
I think just having a conversation and normalizing that conversation amongst youth, and then hopefully eventually take it to their home and talk about it with their parents who have immigrated here. There's a lot of mental health advocacy groups within colleges, universities, and peer-run groups that are, affiliated with the different health authorities and not. And so having that open conversation and saying it's okay to talk about mental health, which is, for a South Asian community, if it's not tangible, we don't really talk about it. And we don't talk about feelings and emotions, unfortunately, and we have to normalize that because there are real issues which leads these young kids to use drugs. So it's slowly happening, but it needs to happen at a rapider pace.
Baljit Lally is with Khalsa Aid. Thank you for being live with us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
More job losses for one of the mighty tech giants. Up next, why Microsoft says it needs to lay off 10,000 employees and how Canada's tech sector is faring.
She
called the Prairie Belle. Normally, this combine works the grain fields of the Peace Country in northeastern British Columbia. Not today. Farmer Nick Parson is driving 1,200 kilometers down the middle of BC to remind people about a natural disaster that's ruining lives and livelihoods.
It's been my way of bringing it to the forefront.
This is Dawson Creek and its fields of unharvested grain. For 2 years, rain has ruined these crops, and people who live here are getting desperate.
We got an ongoing disaster, and it doesn't let up on us, and it eats us away. Whereas like the Manitoba floods last year, they had a disaster. They had a flood for a month, it was over and done with and gone. They seeded their crop and harvested it. We're going into our 3rd year now with hardly getting anything.
Nick Parson is crusading to have more people, including the government, recognize the disaster in the north. He says he's too committed to farming, his family and community to pack it in.
Farming's our livelihood, and it's all we know. We're born and bred farmers. It's part of us. There's nothing else we can do.
He has a lot of support, there's no question about it. The timing of it is something else. It's winter time, a lot of people aren't interested in coming down the road then. He had a predetermined date at which he'd leave, and he stuck with it.
Parson says police have hassled him about driving down some highways, and his tires have been slashed in one community. But so far, nothing has stopped him. His protest ends on Monday in Victoria, where hundreds of other farmers will join him at a rally in front of the legislature. Mike Chisholm, CBC News, Vancouver.
Microsoft is the latest tech giant to trim its workforce, announcing it is eliminating 10,000 positions, or 5% of staff. This comes as Amazon begins the biggest round of layoffs in that company's history. So is the entire industry in turmoil? Nisha Patel looks to answer that question.
From the headquarters of Amazon to the offices of Microsoft. For tech workers, 2023 is off to a rocky start.
Every technology company that we have heard of, whether it's Salesforce, whether it's DocuSign, whether it's Shopify in Canada, they're all, it's the same story.
That story is one of a sector that expanded too far, too fast. But as higher interest rates cool demand, companies have been forced to scale back.
So a lot of them are reevaluating their business lines, reevaluating their investments, and also reevaluating kind of the high labor costs that they've accumulated.
Smaller Canadian players are also trimming headcounts. Hootsuite and Benevity laid off workers. E-commerce firm Lightspeed and online car seller Clutch slashed staff. Clearco and Thinkific cut positions too. That's a total of around 800 jobs this week alone. But some say Canada's tech sector is resilient.
I think we've seen elements of this in 2001, 2002. I think we've seen it in 2008, 2009. And in all of those times, we've seen great companies come out of them.
So what will you do if you work at Docebo?
Meanwhile, the labor market is extremely tight, with some companies still struggling to find talent.
Here's a quick example of
Software firm Docebo has dozens of jobs to fill.
Even with the layoff climate that we're seeing, it's always competitive. The supply is too short for the demand.
Oh, I've heard good things about these guys.
So Evelyn Watts is hopeful, despite getting a pink slip from her insurance tech firm right before the holidays.
I would say it was disappointing. We were so excited about the next year.
But she's been through this cycle before.
I know it always feels kind of like this shock when you have a layoff or there's a change, but I'm a silver lining kind of person.
And she's confident her next gig is just a click away. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Canada's Minister of National Defence has made a surprise visit to Ukraine. Anita Anand announced more military aid for the country in its fight with Russia. But as Chris Brown reports, the announcement comes on a dark day for Ukraine. A helicopter crash has left several people dead, including a child and a government minister.
Visiting dignitaries often begin their trips to Ukraine paying their respects to soldiers killed by Russia. Anita Anand also saw some of the Russian tanks destroyed trying to capture the capital. But with this day also came terrible new losses for Ukraine, the latest of so many. A helicopter carrying Ukraine's interior minister and other top officials went down in the morning fog next to a kindergarten in a Kyiv suburb. All 9 on board died, as did a child in the school and other adults on the ground. Some parents thought it was another Russian attack. I saw an object, a glowing red light, going down above the nursery, falling. At first, I thought it was a rocket. In all likelihood, though, this may just have been a terrible accident.
Extremely devastating for the Ukrainian government, as well as Ukrainian people who are feeling the effects of war and now a tragedy such as this.
There is little time here to grieve, though. Russia's war in this country is unrelenting. And so Anand went ahead with her meetings and her main announcement that Canada will send 200 Canadian-made Senator armored personnel carriers worth $90 million to Ukraine.
And I have heard repeatedly that Ukrainian troops appreciate their maneuverability and their adaptability.
Ukraine already has senators that it bought and others Canada donated. We were invited to join a patrol along the tense northern border with Belarus in a senator that's only been in service 2 weeks. Vladislav, the driver, told us it feels solid, has strong metal, and it drives quickly so you can rapidly get away from the battlefield. His commander was equally effusive.
What do you think of your new vehicle?
I think it's amazing, said Alexander. It's very maneuverable, and we can do rapid battlefield evacuations of injured soldiers if we need to. Ukraine's defense minister thanked the Canadian government and people, as did President Vladimir Zelensky in a tweet, even as he noted that the pain Ukrainians are feeling from the helicopter crash and so many other Russian-inflicted tragedies has become unspeakable. Chris Brown, CBC News, Kyiv.
Taking a flight these days can be pretty pricey. So with the cost continuing to go up, there are growing calls for the feds to step in. How can they help? Well, the answer is coming up. After weeks of travel chaos, more misery for some Sunwing customers tonight. The Canadian discount airline just canceled another pile of winter flights. Between this and increasing flight prices, Sophia Harris is hearing the calls for government to step in.
Lisa Adams Cranville is determined to escape Regina's winter by taking her family on a trip to Cuba. But there's a problem. Following the travel chaos over the holidays, Sunwing canceled the family's initial flight to Cuba, scheduled for earlier this month. The leisure carrier also canceled most flights from Regina and many from Saskatoon for the rest of the winter, citing business constraints.
It's just unfair that, because Saskatchewan is the smallest, I guess maybe we don't do enough business for them.
The cancellations mean no direct flights from Regina to Cuba. So instead, Adams Cranville booked a Sunwing flight from Winnipeg. Her family will have to drive nearly 600 kilometers to board the plane.
Upset, definitely. It'll be my husband driving, not me. But it's an additional day that we have to take off work.
Sunwing has also canceled Sun destination flights from other smaller cities, including Sudbury and Fredericton. This business professor predicts further air service reductions in smaller regions as airlines look to save money due to rising operating costs.
We want a competitive market.
He also says if WestJet gets approval to purchase Sunwing, that will raise competition issues, as already noted by the Competition Bureau.
They said it's going to reduce competition, it's going to reduce service and increase prices, all the things that are not supposed to happen.
Airfares are already soaring, up by 26% in December compared to pre-pandemic times. Some experts say it's time for Ottawa to consider opening up the Canadian market to foreign competition to help increase service and decrease airfares.
We're going to be forced to make that decision. Do we want foreign means, of course, American, as we know, mostly American airlines coming in.
The federal government says it will continue to ensure there's more competition and more options for air passengers. It didn't say precisely how.
We leave on the 27th and anything can happen.
As for Adams Cranville, she's excited about her trip, but worried that it too might get canceled. Sophia Harris, CBC News, Vancouver.
Meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe is here, and you're still tracking that unsettled weather, aren't you?
Yes, we're sort of bordering on almost nocturnal thunderstorms now, Anita. This is the convection or the unsettled thunderstorms we're getting behind that cold front. So still seeing some pockets of unstable weather, sort of tracking between Surrey and Abbotsford, right along that border. Wouldn't be surprised if we see another rumble or two. But generally, the story is clearing out for the next couple of days as that cold front tracks east. And something else this cold front is doing, bringing some good and much needed mountain snow to the interior, although this same cold front dropped about 50 centimeters on the mountain range on the island, Mount Washington, and heads up that avalanche conditions are considerable because of this fresh dump of snow on top of what is a very unstable layer. High pressure for the next couple of days. I think we'll still see a stray shower, but Thursday and Friday looking sunny. And then this is the system moving in for Saturday, just a one shot for the first half of the weekend. Temperatures are cooling down slightly in the long range as we get this cooler air mass. It's a nice change from the wet and mild we've had the past couple of weeks. So look at the daytime highs starting tomorrow, sort of a couple of degrees above the freezing mark. And then through the weekend, we'll see them come down to the freezing mark. By early next week, afternoon highs will be around the freezing mark, if not below, for the southern interior. And we'll see those in Metro Vancouver for our overnights. We'll be getting down around -2 through early next week. So that is some cooler air. And if we do get a little system, that will mean some snow, but right now I just see flakes for early next week. So let's break it down, starting with the sunshine we'll see tomorrow. Some models, though, again, putting that afternoon shower in, so just be prepared. Otherwise, crisp and mainly dry. Same story for Friday. It's Saturday, we get that little hit. At this point, it looks like a Saturday morning shower story. If it starts early enough, it will start as wet snow and then tapering off in the afternoon. Clearing out lovely for Sunday. If anyone else is joining for the Lunar New Year parade in Chinatown, it's going to be a nice one. And flakes for Monday morning before we get the sunshine and cool temperatures back. I mean, all in all, Anita, I think this is a refreshing change to the weather.
That looks really good. A lot of sunshine, so I'll take it. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Anti-regime protests have been taking place in Iran for 4 months now. And as pressure rebuilds, there are regime members suspected of escaping to Canada. Some Canadians aren't standing by, though. As Adrian Arsenault shows us, these so-called regime chasers are taking matters into their own hands.
It's come to this. These people wandering around Toronto's Pearson Airport got a tip about a passenger on an incoming flight. Someone from Iran, reportedly someone close to the murderous regime. Someone may be hoping to slip in unnoticed.
Why are you coming here?
Not a chance.
You are working for the Iranian regime. What are you doing in Canada?
Multiple phones aimed at the person, and this arrival is suddenly a public shaming exercise. We've blurred all their faces. The CBC News has not confirmed any of the allegations.
You are working for terrorist regime. Our young people are getting hanged on the street.
Disruptive enough to attract the attention of baffled officers.
You're causing a huge scene. Bring it down. Okay? There's no need for this shit. She just came to Canada. She used to work for the Iranian regime. And we like to know who has given her a visa. And we want the Canadian government to investigate that.
Okay. Well, this is not anything that is Canadian business.
Pardon me?
Okay. Well, I mean, what I mean is it's not anything that is... What am I trying to say?
Because you said this is not Canadian business. That is.
No. What I mean is it's for Canadian Border Services to investigate. Right.
Did you hear what he first said? This is not Canadian business. That answer angered protesters who say this is why they take matters into their own hands.
This is not acceptable. Canadian government.
Convinced Canada just doesn't get that it's being used by those close to the regime as a place to escape to. Plenty others do get it.
Okay, anything about developments with any of the cases? Did you want to pose the question?
A more sedate but just as serious gathering of what are effectively regime chasers.
Yeah.
Vancouver lawyer Mojdeh Shahiri with volunteers collecting tips on people in Canada with suspicious ties to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard.
Allegation that a family of an IRGC member is in Canada and engaged in some activity.
Yeah, we can pursue this for sure.
All right.
These people are not people that we want to have in Canada. They're terrorists.
All tips explored, sometimes with private investigators. When and if there's evidence, they go to authorities. Right now, they're looking at some 200 potential people.
Wonderful.
This sounds a bit creepy. You know, it sounds a little bit like vigilantes, and there's something about it that doesn't sit right.
Keep in mind who we are talking about. Do you want these people to roam around in Canada unchecked? Are you okay with that? I don't think so. So if Canada was doing what it's supposed to do to keep Canada safe, there would be no need for anything that we are doing.
They say they're careful. No one in this group will approach the suspected regime members. But there's real anxiety here. They only formed in the fall as the protests in Iran were at their peak, and they're getting busier. The fear building that those affiliated with the brutal regime might sense their time in Iran is coming to an end. So they're looking for a place to move to with their money and families, and Canada seems open.
Even within the laws that we have, they should not be able to come to Canada, but they keep coming. So I'm as shocked as anyone else, and I don't have an answer for that. People sometimes ask me, you're a lawyer, how is this happening? I really don't know.
Attentive and fearful citizens have made changes before. These images taken last year at a gym in Ontario. You might not recognize this man, but an Iranian dissident living in Canada did, and made a lot of noise about it. This man is the former head of the Tehran Police Department, Mortezi Talayi, the man who happened to be in charge when Canadian photojournalist Zara Kazemi was murdered in Tehran's Evin prison. What was he doing here? For weeks last fall, CBC sent questions to the Canadian government about this man's presence. Not long after those emails, he was officially put on a sanctions list. There are expectations Canada will do more than that. The Prime Minister effectively promised it.
We know there are people in Canada now who have benefited from the corrupt, from the horrific regime in Iran to live a good life in Canada. Will we say no more?
Strong words, but not nearly enough action for those taking to the streets.
Woman life freedom! Woman life freedom!
So this is interesting. We're just keeping an eye on this protest in Thornhill, just outside of Toronto. It's been going on for months, every Friday. Sometimes the crowd is huge, sometimes it's small. Consistently, these people say they are so frustrated at not being heard by Canada and Canadian authorities.
Why here? What are you worried about right here?
Because we are sure they have close relationship with Islamic Republic of Iran. We want to ask, please watch them, investigate them.
The they, it seems, are people reportedly connected with the nearby mosque, an allegation denied. But fear and fury remain.
Justice for Iran!
These demonstrations can get rough. At this very spot, a man reportedly tried to run down protesters. He was charged with dangerous driving, fleeing police, and possession of weapons.
This gentleman in here.
Some take their accusations right to people's front doors. Note the body armor on this man. Anger boiling.
Is working with Iranian regime.
Hi, good to meet you.
It feels like this has the potential to get dangerous.
There is the threat of excess, of people going too far, of people being slandered, and I have seen examples of that.
Kaveh Sharouz is a human rights activist who's among those discreetly tracking, not confronting, regime affiliates here in Canada. But he shares the raw anger of those who take it further.
I have personally been in many meetings with government officials saying, folks, this is a real threat to this country. Aside from being just generally unfair, it's also a threat to this country. And we've always been dismissed, politely dismissed. They say that this is a country that views us as full Canadians, but when we raise concerns, those concerns aren't dealt with in the way that they should be. So I think there is immense anger at Canadian authorities.
As the pressure on the regime grows and grows and grows, what happens? What's the threat?
Well, you saw at the end of the Second World War, a lot of the Nazis fled to Argentina or other places in South America. I worry that the same thing is going to happen as the Iranian regime comes under pressure and hopefully collapses. You're going to see agents of the regime, particularly the ones that are less well known, take their ill-gotten gains, take their foreign passports and escape to other countries. And a lot of them, I suspect, are going to be coming to Canada.
This is my country.
The fear isn't going away, but this is a community tired of sounding the alarm and feeling like they're all alone.
It's a long-standing tradition for Lunar New Year celebrations. After the break, we'll introduce you to two of the people behind the lion dance.
I have no faith in the company anymore, and I certainly will never book with them again after this.
Lindsay May delayed her destination wedding at first because of the pandemic. It was finally rebooked for this January, but then, just days before flying out, Sunwing canceled her Regina flight.
The fact that I found out from social media was really hard, and my phone was blowing up like crazy from friends and family saying, "Are you booked with Sunwing? Oh my God, I hope you're not booked with Sunwing. This is going to be bad."
May says she spent hours along with her travel agent changing plans. The resort was not offering any refunds, but did move her wedding date to mid-March, which worked for the 8 people in her group flying Sunwing until this week. The airline has confirmed it is cutting some of its Saskatoon flights and nearly all service from Regina for the rest of winter. Sunwing declined an interview, but in an email said this is due to extenuating circumstances. So while there are flight options, those don't apply to May, whose group also includes people from outside Saskatchewan, adding another challenge.
when there's cancellations that happen with a group in one city, it doesn't mean the whole group has a cancellation.
This travel agent says those guests who still have Sunwing service are not guaranteed a refund or rebooking options, which is why some groups are still trying to work out alternatives with the airline. Sunwing suggests Regina travelers depart from Saskatoon or make their way to a city in another province on their own dime to fly out of Calgary, Edmonton, or Winnipeg.
That takes time, extra time away from, guests who've already taken time off work. It's extra cost if they have to stay overnight in a hotel, if there's a morning flight the next day. It's just a lot.
May says her travel agent is helping her group switch airlines entirely, which will add to costs. For now, she's excited about her new wedding date on March 15th, which marks the anniversary of the couple's first conversation and the start of their future together. Daniela Ponticelli, CBC News, Regina.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
Celebrate the city's most impactful leaders with Anita Bathe at the annual Vancouver Magazine Power 50 Awards. Join the fun February 2nd at the Terminal City Club. Learn more and get tickets at vanmag.com. And never miss a special programming series, event, or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter at cbc.ca/Vancouver inbox and keep connected with us.
The Lunar New Year is coming up this weekend, and that means festive food, red envelopes, parades, and performances. That includes a Lunar New Year favorite, the Lion Dance. We met up with the Vancouver Lion Dance Association for a sneak peek of their performance and the meaning.
Because the lion cannot talk, so he has to use his expressions to tell the story. Normally, it will be a lion going through like a obstacle course or doing something, and then to find food. And then once he finds the food, and then he will spit it back out. The food that the lion eats is a lettuce, and lettuce rhymes with like the Chang rhymes with like the word money in Asia. So when the lion spits it back out, it's throwing prosperity, luck, and money.
But it's just me and Eugenia, like the head coach, and then we do the performance together. She's my tail, and then we do a whole routine where it tells a story of a lion jumping across a bridge, and it like discovers what's on the other side. And I'm kind of just trying to focus on being in tune with my tail. It did let me reconnect with my culture. Was I got to learn more about like traditions and stuff like that I otherwise may not have been exposed to. Yes, I actually learned a lot from my coach about all the different traditions and why we perform the way we do.
A lot of people that are in our club right now, they are either born in Canada or immigrate from Asia, so they want to keep their culture and also spread our culture to other people.
And CBC will be at the Chinatown Spring Festival Parade this Sunday, as Johanna mentioned. If you feel like coming by, we'd love to see you. The parade starts at 11 a.m. and it's always a good time. This is actually the first one back since the pandemic as well. All right, that's it for our show tonight. We'll see you tomorrow.